Hey everyone, welcome to Advantage Point, the series where we unpack how smarter systems and sharper thinking create strategic advantage. This season, we're rethinking SaaS customer experience, the metrics that actually matter in 2025. Now, did you know that 80% of SaaS companies admit they track too many metrics, yet fewer than 30% say that they trust those numbers to guide decisions? And here's the kicker. Companies that focus on just 3 to 5 CX metrics grow revenue nearly twice as fast as their peers. So metrics aren't just numbers that you glance at anymore. They're the steering wheel of growth. Focus on the wrong ones and you drift off course. Focus on the right ones and you scale smoothly. Today, we'll attempt to break down, with my expert guest, which customer experience numbers actually matter in 2025, and why so many teams still measure the wrong things, and how even small fixes can unlock loyalty, adoption, and revenue. Joining me is the main man, Eric, co-owner and creative design director at Page Design, a Sacramento-based branding and design studio that's been helping brands look their best at every customer touchpoint for more than 40 years. Eric also co-hosts the marketing team of One podcast, where he shares hard-won lessons for solo marketers navigating today's noisy landscape. And that's exactly why I've brought him on here, because I'm sure we'll have lots to learn from everything he has to say to us. So, Eric, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be on here. Thanks a lot, Daniel. That was a great intro. I'll try to live up to all those adjectives and descriptions. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you live and breathe it. I don't think I even did it justice, but thank you for the humility. But I'm sure as we get into it, the viewers will quickly realize that everything I've said is true and even more. Okay. So again, like I said, with these, I don't let the guests know the questions beforehand. So I have a pre-broadcasting chat with them to give them an idea, but I can guarantee Eric is in the hot seat here and is flying blind. So everything you're hearing is basically straight from the heart or the head, or the combination of both, effectively. Right. Okay. So, Eric, let's start with something you said in episode 31 of your podcast, and I like the title, You're Not Scrappy, You're Just Disorganized. And in there, you talked about how messy files and scattered assets slow everything down. Now, if a SaaS CMO only had 15 minutes a day to tidy up, where should they start so that the launches don't slip?
Ooh, great one. Yeah. We always start with brand. So things like brand guidelines and anything that's associated with brand elements need to be in one accessible area, whether it's a SharePoint folder that's unlocked and accessible by all teams out there who are working with that CMO specifically, or a Google folder, something like that, that is kind of the one point of truth for everything brand related. So that would be all of your logo files, all of your asset files, even things like photos and descriptions of what colors. We even include things like copy points, elevator pitches, three-word descriptions, taglines, 3-sentence descriptions, paragraph, things like that. So anything that would get somebody up to speed with who your brand represents or who your audience is, get that stuff organized and easily accessible as quickly as possible. We deal a lot with one of the things when we finish a brand package, we deliver a Google folder that includes all of those elements, easy to find, very easy to organize. And we keep it updated because we're kind of responsible for the brand for our clients at those higher levels. So
Awesome. And in terms of that, do you think SharePoint does the job, or Google? I mean, in my head, I think it does. But do you think it's the pinnacle of what's needed, or do you think, essentially there could be smarter ways or more clever ways of storing everything, or is just go, well, to be fair, Google Drive isn't old fashioned. I guess maybe for me it is to a certain degree, but does that do the job effectively?
If we were going to compare, I would bring up 3 different platforms. SharePoint seems to be very popular with a lot of larger enterprise organizations. Not super easy to work with, and I know that it's very hard for people to manage access outside of their own organization, which is a struggle. So that's obviously there's a lot of great advantages to SharePoint, and I'm not going to take the time to rip on SharePoint because it's a solution that a lot of people rely on all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
Google Drive for me is kind of the lowest common denominator. It's something that everybody has access to. It's almost democratized to a point where any organization at any scale can go and implement. But no, it's not ideally the UI or the UX and the usability of it. You almost have to save the link somewhere precious on your hard drive somewhere where you can easily just click it and go there, as opposed to clicking through and trying to navigate. That's a difficult thing. We really are visual people as designers in our organization. So we appreciate a service like Air. That is a very visually organized, um, it's like a content management system, and there's better systems out there that are strictly used for content management and asset management, so stock photo organizations, or folders. um, all of your things can be organized and then looked at visually as well as searched easily. They use an AI to scrape a lot of like copy elements, even photos, so that you can easily go through and search. So one of the big ones that we recommend, and we get some of our clients, if they're open to it, we try to get them on Air. We also, you could say PDFs in there. It's
yeah.
super easy to scan. Sometimes people can go through and look visually and really get a good understanding of what they're looking for and quickly access it. But that's,
Excellent.
there's a little cost to that as well. It's pretty affordable though.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Now, you wrote in your blog, rebranding, 8 things to consider, that talking to customers is non-negotiable. For SaaS teams moving fast, what's the minimum research they can do that still predicts churn risk later?
This is a great question. Very complex on the back end of it. As I'm looking at it and thinking about it, we always start off with who is your audience and doing the research around who that audience is. Ideally, you've picked one, potentially three, to start with. A lot of the
Yeah.
organizations that we work with have small, tighter resources, so they're really only working with maybe a maximum of 3 or 4 audiences to
Mm,
specifically go towards. So the key to getting any sort of traction around any sort of marketing effort, you really have to get inside the head of who that person is and
right.
build out some sort of a avatar. And we go as deep as putting a name to it. This is
Okay.
Sally. She's 32. She's a yoga instructor. She's interested in
Mm,
fitness. She has a dog, and she loves to go to the coast on the weekends and do wine trips. Though that's as detailed as sometimes we need to get.
wow.
And that might be all you need to do. And you may not know this person specifically or identify them in your
Sure.
statistics, but if you can actually breathe life into this character, I think it helps to align a lot of teams on just little subtle changes that they might make to the experience that will grab those people and grab that
Hmm.
audience effectively, because they're everybody is hypersensitive to how they're being communicated and marketed to.
Of course.
Obviously, we see thousands of brands every single day, and so any way we can bring in some sort of genuine avatar or genuine emotion, building story around that person, really will help kind of jumpstart anybody who's maybe going into an automation or building out some sort of SaaS product where they really don't have contact, or maybe they're trying to reach 30,000 of these people, which they're
Yeah.
out there for sure. But doing the research and making sure that it is there is a addressable market around that as well. Maybe you make sure you're not too specific. Although in this day and age, the more specific you get with your market, the more you're going to generate love and affection and a genuine
Mm.
emotion towards your brand, if you know what I mean. Does that make
And
sense?
I think what you've touched there, I think, really strikes a chord, certainly in terms of sort of almost having the story that drives the systemization and the automation of what you do. And I really like the stuff that you mentioned about Avatar, and I'm trying desperately not to segue in my mind to the movie, basically the Avatar. But how do you go about? And I don't know if you have any stories, because I like stories, because I think people like stories and people learn from stories. But how do you go about building the avatar, if you will? Do you have do you have any stories, or do you just want to walk us through how you would sit down with a client and build that out? Because I think that's very interesting, and I think that's very key.
Thanks. Yeah, we do a workshop process all the time with our new clients specifically. Any
Mm,
new engagement with page design begins with a workshop where we establish that is one of the key things that we begin with. We identify who is their audience and what are their pain points. And then we dive deeper into who those people are and ask our
mm.
customer knows their customers
Yes.
intimately. They may be those customers, they may be the same person, or they may not be. A lot of times we deal with people in the medical industry or in the research scientist industry where they're doing research around a certain issue and they need to understand who their audience is. So they might just say, okay, this piece of research or this effort that we're building a web page or we're building this report or we're building this effort, marketing, messaging effort around is for these people. We know them a little bit, but we also are so into the research and the science behind, whatever the project is that we're doing. Let's say it's gun violence or something like that. We need to understand who those people are because sometimes the researchers, the scientists, the super intelligent people that we work with as
Yeah.
clients, it's hard for them to label or identify that. So we'll pick up cues from them and then do research on our own to help identify who is their audience, bring it back to them, of course, have conversations, refine that
Sure.
story. But we work with a couple of copywriters that really do a great job of we try to extract that information and then we hand it to copywriters who then build out these stories and they're fictional, but those stories do help the customer understand, well, yeah, those are the people that we want to talk to. That's exactly who I think would find value in the work that we're doing.
Excellent. And that process, I mean, how many, I mean, and I know I'm probably asking how long does a piece of string, but on average, what does that process look like lengthwise, in terms of that workshop
Mm.
cycle, as it were? Do you have like feedback? I mean, certainly in my world as a business analyst, before I started this, I know very often I had to go back to the customers or to the client or to clarify, well, what are the requirements? What does this look like? And many times a lot of people don't actually know what they want till you squeeze it out of them, basically. So I'm wondering for you, for you,
Yes.
is that the same case with you? How long would that whole process take roughly?
Yeah, a lot of squeezing going on. So very hands on. No,
Tell
I'm
me what
teasing.
you want.
It is a process, and it depends on the size of the group. If we can get,
Okay.
if it's a small organization where maybe there's two or three stakeholders, that's of course a lot easier. Where we'll do two 90-minute workshops, and we can usually get to a really solid point. So the first one we're gathering information. The second one we're gathering a little bit more information, but we're also presenting some findings that we assumed from the first workshop might work for
Right.
them and
Yeah.
going it's a lot more interactive the second one. Now when we get involved with large groups, maybe it's a association that's got 10 board members or 30 board members, or it's an educational institution where they've got 16 doctors that are all in the same department and they all want to say something and their feedback is perfectly valuable. Those tend to take a lot longer. I know that we had recently just done a renaming project as well as a rebranding for an association here in Sacramento that, interestingly enough, they're an association of associations. That's
Oh,
where we're
okay.
at now. It's so meta, right? But they are the association leaders who help train the new leaders of other associations throughout the state. We've got thousands of associations and nonprofits here in California, of course, all over the country. But they help to train them and bring and grow leaders, as it were, I guess.
Yes.
So they train people on those other associations to become and step into the roles of leadership. So going through that was challenging because there's almost two or three levels of decision makers involved. They have great leadership over there who allowed for a lot of voices to be heard, a lot of input to be given, a lot of back and forth. But that process, just to get to a new name, took 6 months. So there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of debate and presentations, going back, refining, presentation.
Wow.
So it can go anywhere from 1 month to 6 months, I would say, to give you a simple answer.
Wow. Well, I like the long answer as well. Puts it certainly in context. So yeah. I mean, hopefully they like the new name you got for them in the end.
They seem very happy and they're very excited about where, yeah, it's a new brand that we came up with called Associations West, because it was like 18 syllables. California Associate Executive, there was all these
Oh,
words to it
yeah.
that sounded very,
Oh, right. Okay. I
really
like
didn't
that.
want
I
to like
see that.
associate themselves with it because it was just too hard to even explain what they did. And so
Yeah.
we kind of just put it under one umbrella, tried to simplify the communication and the brand a little bit, made it easy for them. We gave them words to describe what they
Mm,
do,
mm,
and worked with their team to develop taglines and easy communication points that then they could train their leadership in, as well as all of their members on
yeah.
what, oh, I'm going to Associations West meeting. Oh, great. What's that? Well, it's the associations of
Yeah.
associations, basically. They've got
Nice.
other words that they've used, but that was a very successful campaign, and they're
Nice.
living in their
I
new
mean,
brand right now. It's like wearing a new
yeah.
new suit. They love it.
Exactly, and I mean, I like it. Not that my opinion matters, but certainly sounds catchy. Because, like you said, it's like Association Press. What's that? It prompts that next conversation. So well done. Again, not
Thanks.
that my opinion matters. Basically, your clients are happy, and that's what matters. Okay, and again, like I say, anyone who hasn't watched anything, like I said earlier on, Eric has his own series of podcasts, and I promise you, this man is hilarious. So please do go and watch him. So you find a lot of my questions is just a cover up for basically spending time watching his content. Basically, so you'll notice time and time again, I refer to his content. But on that note, in episode 33, called video storytelling, you said a 30-second demo video can really shorten trial to paid. Now, in your opinion, what's the one metric that proves a video is driving activation and not just racking up views, as it were?
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting about creating content is everybody gets stuck on vanity metrics, which we really
Mm,
don't really pay a lot of attention to. We look at it as a vanity metric. We just look at, oh, that's fun. Oh, we've got this many views, or we've got this many
yeah,
activation around. It's really, though, what is it prompting phone calls? Is it prompting inquiries? Is it prompting purchase? Those are the things that we look at a lot more, with a lot more importance, because YouTube and all the algorithms, you can become, you know it can become your master, and it's not, it can change
true.
on a dime, and that's really
Yeah.
nothing that we want to put a lot of importance on. I know that doing podcasts on YouTube is fun, but we've never looked at it as something that would move the needle for us as far as the business getting sales immediately right out of it. It's a little bit more of a complex environment that eventually leads to that. So there's important elements that when you're creating content, you need to first build that authority. And I think that's one of the most important things that our podcast does for us, is it helps people understand that, oh, they know what they're talking
What
about.
we're
And I
talking
think a
about.
30-second little clip gets that across better than, two paragraphs of copy sometimes, because a copy can be written and crafted, and but if you're on a video and you're showing your product and you're describing and clicking through the workflows, and that's so much more compelling. And I think that when you see those views, they may not, you may not get millions and millions of views on it, but if
But
you're getting a lot
prompts.
more activation with your
Yeah.
product, and you're finding a lot more signups based on it, video is really kind of the future, because people just don't have the patience to sit and read. And there's a genuine quality that I think is going away online more and more. The trust issue is something that we are concerned about here at Page Design all of the time, because it's, I get hammered, and I'm sure you do too, with emails and LinkedIn emails all the time of people
Mm,
who have an AI solution to make your life easier and to basically remove the genuine qualities from, doing what we're doing now, having conversations or
Mm,
demonstrating product on video. It's hard to find that trust. And I think you can build a lot more
sure.
trust by doing video and having people in the video, not
Mm,
not
that's
AI
key.
generated people, not robots. Of
Yeah.
course, it depends on if you're selling robots, then obviously you need to robots in there. But um, I always struggle with that trust factor and building trust with a person. And I've seen it, there's there's product AI products that are out there to help people do their job a lot easier. And some of them are wonderful, like anything, right? Some of them are great, some of them not so great. But when I see somebody on that website demonstrating it, talking to me, making a promise, committing to something about their product, there's a genuine quality there that connects with me a lot more than. So, I would hope that that would move the needle a lot more than just even creating a demonstration video where there's no person
Sure.
involved at all.
Sure. Sure. Basically, trust is the currency that that you exchange between services, and it makes sense. So
More and
completely
more.
agree with that. Um, and again, watching from one of your other episodes, it's time episode 26, called Epic Marketing Bottlenecks. You can see a
Mm.
theme here. You said onboarding mistakes never really go away. So my question to you is, what's the number one mistake that you still see in 2025? And which metrics do you think catches it the fastest in terms of onboarding mistakes?
Yeah. And I think onboarding mistakes, unless you've got a very refined process to cover every step of the process, everything from, I'll just use the phrase cradle to grave, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But there's everything down to payment and after. It's really a lot about like what happens after the first engagement or the first project, whatever if you're doing a service-based industry. What is their follow-up? Is there a reassurance? Is there things like we talked about earlier? Is the Google Drive set up with all of your files and assets? Um, there's this process, and what I mean by it'll be there forever is there's struggles with mostly a lot of the admin things, to be perfectly honest. It's like, who do I pay? How am I going to get paid? There's invoicing issues sometimes that can be a problem. We do a lot with custom projects. So we have custom invoices and custom proposals. And so that's where things get hung up on our end a little bit. But having that onboarding, just handling or having a video that helps people understand every step of the process, breaking that up
Mm,
into here's how we set up your files and your brand assets so that we have access to them, so that we can work with them. They need to be
right.
done this way. When you're in the process of doing the project with your person, there's this point of contact and you'll work with this person as well. So establishing all of those lines of communication, the frequency of communication. People oftentimes forget that detail. Like, I'm going to call you every week, or I'm going to send you an email every 5 days with an update, whether we're working on something or not. Here's an update for what's going on with your list of projects. Is that fine? Great. We'll do it. Some
Mm,
people don't want that, but that's a detail that we like to include if people need that.
yeah.
Sometimes it's when are we going to do the next meetings? Handling those kind of admin things tend to be um, a real bottleneck sometimes because it's very difficult to edit. Let me go back.
Yeah.
It's not very difficult, but when things are not set up initially the right way and there's questions throughout certain parts of the process of working with us, it just puts a little bit less trust in people's heads.
Of
And it
course.
may not
Yeah.
even be that obvious, or they might not even, it may not be that conscious
Vocalize.
to them.
Yeah.
But having every step of the way handled is a great way to provide reassurance and build that trust with a client for every step of the way.
Sure. And actually, staying on that, I was itching to go to the next question, but I think I'd like to expand on that a little more. So, I mean, you've been around for a good time. How do you create that sort of onboarding process? I mean, do you customize it per customer, or is it sort of like a template that everyone fits into? Because I know, obviously, given the work you do, I'm sure you're dealing with loads of clients. So, how do you? I guess what I'm trying to say is personalize it, but still standardize it at a scale.
Yeah, so we do have a template that we use as far as I would guess you would call it an SOP, where it's just a standard operating procedure that we have outlined internally. We then incorporate that into our proposals for when the client begins that engagement. Our proposals tend to have a lot of those details in there, but there are certain things like meeting frequencies and uh, times at which we meet that we have to figure out by hand. But we'll
Right.
usually set those up at the very beginning of the engagement. A lot of our a lot of our relationships come with either a monthly or every other week we meet. Those kind of um,
Okay.
we like to keep in touch with our clients as much as possible, and so we establish that early on, and they just have it in their calendar ready to go. So if there are questions that are not, if maybe it is a custom thing, we usually get to handle it in those meetings that we have on a
Mm,
frequent basis, but it is standardized. We've tried to think through over the 18,000 different projects that we've worked on over the past
wow.
40 years. Believe it or not,
18,000. That is
that's
a
how many
lot of
projects.
projects.
Yeah, it's been
That's
over
crazy.
that number now, but yeah.
Wow.
So during that time, you learn a lot of things. Of course, everything changes too. We use a project management system called ClickUp, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
We invite our clients into that
Sure.
space
Okay.
on larger engagements, just project by project, so that they can see the progress of things and how they're working on boards. Kind of the
Yeah.
Kanban model there. We also
Yeah.
have Slack channels. We also set up a custom email for them, and that's something that they appreciate, because then that email goes out to an entire team of people, so
Mm,
that even if one person's on vacation, or that maybe somebody's you know can't work on their project, two or three other people can be involved in that project, answer the email in a quick fashion, and get work done for them quickly too. So there's a lot of little details like that that we set up for our clients, and that's all explained at the very beginning, and they appreciate that, because then there's no, I think communication is where people really get hung up on working with a service-based industry. It's great to get a new job, it's great to get a new client, but the client you have to build trust with that client, and having the communication channels and
yeah.
frequency spelled out clearly is really critical to building that trust, because they know there's going to be questions, there's going to be problems, and as long as we have some sort of an open channel to that, and we know we're going to get response, I trust you and what we're going to be working on.
Excellent. Excellent. And I like the fact that it seems your workflow well, like you say, if you've done 18,000 projects, the idea is that you'd learn from each one, essentially. But from based on what I'm hearing, I like the fact that it's very well thought out. And I think that's really cool. So kudos on that.
Thanks.
I think that's really
It
cool.
helps our internal teams too, because
Of course.
it allows them to work quicker and
Hmm.
switch gears quickly, so because they know where they can go find information, they don't have to bug anybody for it. It's all in one source of truth, and the client can share information in there as well, so it's very helpful.
Oh, awesome stuff. And again, referring to more of your content, essentially. I think it was episode 28 where and again, we've talked about this earlier on. You were talking about is AI taking over content marketing, which you kind of touched on in the previous question.
Hmm.
You warned that you warned that AI fails when the story isn't clear. Now, again, this is the big story one. Have you got an example, or can you share a story where personalization really boosted the outcome, and how did you measure that?
Yeah, this is an evolving storyline, I think, because
Oh, nice.
as
Nice.
people like me come out more and more and kind of against the what would we call it, the mass production of personality driven or trust driven relationship. I don't even know how to categorize this. It's so hard because the AI models out there are so sophisticated now, and if you have anything out online that can be scraped, whether it's transcripts from a podcast or your website or case studies or papers you've written or anything like that, all of that stuff goes into a giant brain that AI experts can go in and design models around pulling all that information out and trying to be as genuine as possible. So I think what's hard in what maybe stands out is, again, going back to video. And I get video emails, or I'll get a LinkedIn video where that does stand out a little bit more than other cold emails. And believe me, I've tried it. I've worked with a company that developed an AI strategy for my LinkedIn email, InMail, to try to build, networks. And I don't think I did the right job of helping them set things up. I don't think that there was enough sophistication in the research that they had done to try to go out and find people. It was very kind of simplified. And I think in the end, it made potential customers or potential new connections on LinkedIn actually a little more angry, because they probably felt the same thing that, I'm feeling now. Like, okay, you're just having robots go out and try to get as many people on your list as possible. So it's a challenging thing to try to bring that genuine quality. And that's where we don't, I would separate page design maybe from other companies where we don't have a lot of churn. If we get 2 to 3 to 5 new great customers every year, that's wonderful. So anything above that, it's very difficult for me to scale to the 10 to 100 to millions of new clients every year type of business. A lot of our clients don't work that way either. So it's hard for me to speak to any efforts that are out there to try to get 30,000 new customers this year, things like that. I know that in large corporation and enterprises that obviously there's smart marketing people that have all kinds of different systems built around that, but they probably also have a product offering that appeals to an audience that's tens of thousands, if not millions of people either. So if they do a good job of explaining it in a genuine way, answer all the questions, remove some of the doubt, gain some of the trust, I think that that's probably going to be the most successful way people can start to build out and scale and bring on as many new clients as possible. But like I said, I don't have tons of experience doing that.
And here's a question, actually. You always you're making me segue a little bit, but just touching on what you said there. So is it a case of, let me put it this way. If we were in the Matrix, right, where you could do anything, right, and you could sort of scale up the genuine feel that you bring dealing with your customers, if you could scale that up so you could attract new customers, would that be something that you would be open to? Or is it just a case of saying, you know what, I'm actually good with 2 or 3 years? So I guess maybe what I'm trying to ask is the limiting factor the fact that you don't want to dilute the fidelity of the service that you provide if you scale up too quickly? Or is it a case of actually we're just equipped to deal with two to three a year good customers and we're cool with that, if you get what I'm trying to ask?
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify, because I think my efforts to market page design are probably not aligned with what maybe big SaaS companies. Their goals are to scale to a gigantic audience because they can, and a lot of their product and their service is built to do that. They're not dependent on people hands on keyboards doing a lot of the work, and so it's a lot easier for them to scale up. For us, we have such a personal touch to the services that we provide. We really do have personal relationships with every one of our clients. We have conversations with them all the time.
Yeah.
And the work that we do is, I always use the phrase carved out of wood, because it's like we start with
Nice.
just raw materials and we just start
Yeah.
building these things from scratch
Yeah.
for a lot of our clients. And so it's very difficult for us to scale up. And we, at one point, we were over 20 employees, and we were able to do that.
Mm.
But it was a challenge to just stay on top of everything. And so, because of the level of service that we provide, it's harder for us to scale up. And I would say that's probably true for anything that is a little bit more customized. We have a few products, I would say, that we offer that are
Yeah.
still done by hand and still done for any new potential clients. And they're used to kind of bring people in the door, foot in the door type things to
Yeah.
help them feel comfortable and build trust with us, because we understand not everybody's going to call us and be comfortable just signing, $15,000, $30,000 checks right out of the box. So we have process in place to help people understand the value of what they're getting. And we're not for everybody, like our
Mm.
client base is very minimal. Now, we do try to help our clients scale out if they do have those kind of services themselves, and we
Right.
look for those opportunities to help them optimize their messaging, their communication, and getting the word out through all sorts of different marketing channels, advertising even, even old school, like I did a radio commercial last year, So I mean, we
Nice.
pull on all the levers that we can to help get the
Mm.
message out there, but you really have to look at what the service you're providing. Make sure that, you know, in our industry it's becoming a lot more commoditized, and we've always
Mm.
fought that since the dawn of the computer age and uh, commercial art, we'll call it.
Yeah.
It's slowly been on this drip to try to commoditize and simplify. And honestly, the work that we do is very custom and is very specific to some very particular clients that have a very distinct understanding of what they need, distinct understanding of their audience, and need people to listen to them and do the work, sometimes over and over and over until we get it right. And that's
Get it
just, they
right. Yeah.
understand that, and that's a lot harder to scale out. So I hope that answered your question.
It does like 70%. But I guess the remaining 30% is if you could, again, imagine you could take that and amplify what you do, but still keeping the fidelity, would then in that case, would you be open up to scaling then? I guess is what I'm trying to ask. So I get
I
exactly
would,
what you're
I
saying.
would, but I think here's the
I
thing
think
is
it's difficult to do. Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult to bring on and grow our staff. I think that
Mm.
um, we spend a lot of time training our staff, and maybe
Okay.
that's a fault of our own. And maybe if we were able to do that quicker and easier and get people, that's where I always run into a problem is, great, we
Right.
got 10 more new clients. Awesome. Okay, who's going to do all the work? Because the, the 8 people that do the work now on all the design stuff, they're swamped and they don't have a
Mm.
lot of the time to, much less bring on then new people, train them in on some things, because
Right.
we have somewhat of a particular way of doing things. Not to say that we couldn't bring in somebody who's a little bit more experienced, and they would be able to pick up where we left off and be fine. But our
Mm.
experience with growing like that is, it's comes down to that issue where it's like, do you want to have a business where you make $200 million in revenue and you've got 600 people and there's a whole pile of freak out associated with that? And then there is the, are you happy with, 5 10 million dollars and you've got a small staff, everybody,
Mm.
everybody's got their own agency. Our staff is all remote, and so we build a
Okay.
lot of trust in that they are doing their job every day as hard as they can. Our customers hold their feet to the fire, so we know they are. And
Nice.
so that's easier for me, I guess, to get my head around and keep track of and help manage and help train people. But that said, we also rely on a lot of our more experienced staff members here to train in new hires and make sure that they understand the level at which we're working. Because, like I said before, our clients are very particular, and I don't think we would get away with, just throwing staff at a problem and hoping
Sure.
that it works great. I mean, we get, it's a process to work with our clients. It's a back and forth. We always have
Mm.
revisions. We always have rounds of work that we do with them, it's
Yeah.
rarely ever right on the first try. And that's not for a lack of research or trying, but it's just a matter of once clients, sometimes they see what they explain, what we reflect back to them, and they
Yeah.
maybe want to tweak it. And it's not any
Yeah.
reflection on anybody in the process. It's just
Yeah.
our job is to breathe life into concepts and
Of course.
ideas. And sometimes when people see that, they're like, wait, I meant this, because then they're they reinterpret it a little bit because they see what it
Yeah.
looks like and have to refine it.
I know exactly what you mean. No, that makes perfect sense. So thank you very much for that. And I'm looking at the time and I'm really enjoying the conversation. So I'm going to have to like skip over some of them to make sure I can squeeze in. I'm going to go for the last two questions just to make sure that, and again, like I say, and I had this feeling once when we had our pre-podcast chat that there'll be probably lots more to squeeze out of you. We're talking a lot about squeezing today, but a lot more that I can squeeze out from you in 40 minutes. So I have a very distinct feeling that, we might have to do a two-parter, as it were.
I'll try to be more concise too. Sorry.
No. No, please don't you dare. Otherwise, you're not coming back. I want the full breadth of everything that you have to offer, Eric. So please, no.
Thank you.
Not at all. Right. Okay. So the last one of the last two questions. Now, so how do you answer the CFO who asks, how does design spend actually move revenue? What's your best answer to a CFO that says, well, actually, this money, but like you said, sign another 15 grand, 30 grand. How do we know it's actually going to do anything? How would you respond to that?
Love this question because we get it all the time. CFOs, you want to, why? What? No, just do, we don't need this new looking thing. Here's the thing that makes the biggest difference in a quality brand. And I would say a brand is expressed through all the things that we do, all the communication that you do, everything that's online, every social media. Your brand as it exists is not just your logo, it's everything associated with it. In fact, the brand is the space that it takes up in your brain. What do you think of when you hear the word Apple computer or when you hear IBM or Microsoft? That's the brand.
Wow.
It's in here. It's not a picture. A picture is part of it. In that, when you establish that brand, and a design is a huge part of it, so I don't want to leave design out of this, but design is just a part. The closest thing that I can give people as far as an ROI on investing in their brand is how long does your sales cycle take? Does it take tons of conversation and education? No, let me just, I'll call you next Friday. We'll keep, there's a lot of cycles that take place in large expenditures. However, if you have a brand that establishes trust and carves out a space in people's brain that there's a short circuit to almost, where they're just like, no, we're just going to go with Microsoft because I trust them. They've done this. There's this example. I think Google came out with research. You need to have your brand exposed at least 11 times before people even know it exists. Think of the money that people have invested in getting their brand out there over and over and over every single day. What that does, though, is remove the friction when it comes to a buying purchase. I know when I'm going to go buy an instant, a GoPro sports camera, I'm going to go buy a GoPro because I just trust the brand. I could read online and people could say all kinds of bad things about GoPro, but I know from my experience, the brand of GoPro is a good product. So I'm going to go buy that. I don't need to go talk to a million people. I don't need to think of your offerings, your services in terms of how much of that is taking place how much of that are you doing and you're again carving it out of wood, or how much of it is just exists out there in people's heads and there's a built-in trust. If there is that trust, boom, they're just going to go buy it. And that's really important. And that to me is the most important power of a good brand.
That is, what, it's almost a philosophical moment for me because I've never actually heard it explained like that. The value of the brand is the space that it takes up in your head, and what that does is that it shortens the time to sell. That's great stuff. Almost tad philosophical, I would say. But
Oh,
yeah, no, that's really,
thank
really,
you.
really, really, really great stuff. And my final question. If you could wave a wand and add one customer metric to your dashboard, what would it be? And why do you not have it yet? Would you say? So it's like a two-parter. So if you could add anything, I know I said it's going to be one, but I snuck one in there,
Oh
basically.
my gosh. Well, I still do love the Net Promoter Score, NPS, where everybody's, would you recommend working with them? So much of our business is based on referral. And so we have I would say probably a pretty high NPS, our Net Promoter Score. And it's just that one simple question. Would people recommend using and going to page design for anything? Yes. Okay. That it is. It's almost a binary question. So I know that that's not a sophisticated answer, but is it
No,
something that if we could wave a magic wand and have everybody fill out that we have as existing clients now? We've done it through testimonials and talking to our clients. Understand though that we've maybe got 35 clients that we're working with at any one time. So it's an easy thing for us to put our arms around and go talk to them and say, hey, are you happy with? Did you like that last project? How did you like the art director? How did you like the final product? Was there any issues or questions around it? And we get a lot of great feedback that way. So that's one of the metrics that I think is the most important is just would we be referred by our
to someone
clients
else.
to other
Yeah.
people?
No, that's great. And the other part, I think I'm going to change the second part of the question to this
Okay.
basically. And the second part I'm going to ask is, so you know, page design 5 years from now, where do you see yourselves effectively, and what would you say are kind of the stopping you from getting there? Where I keep adding parts of the question. I'm so sorry, Eric. But I don't know. You're an interesting guy. I don't know. I need to get out as much of you as I can because I don't know when everyone else are going to agree to be back on this. And I
Anytime. I'll be
promise.
back anytime.
Thanks, man. But here, okay, this is it, right? Okay, final question, and I promise I'll let you get on your way. So, my question is 5 years from now, where do you see your brand? Where do you see your business? And what would you say maybe is the main bottlenecks stopping you from getting there, like as at now, in your opinion?
We've always struggled with niching down. We are a, legacy design firm, I would call us, that dates back to 1980. So there's a lot of legacy built into the staff and kind of the underpinnings of what page design is all about that probably limit us from niching down. Now that said, we have four pillars that we work with. We work with, and most of these, like 75% of our business, is through some sort of a nonprofit association or quasi government institution here in California. So we work with water agencies, we work with agriculture, we work with tourism, and we work with technology. We love the clients that we work with in that space. That said, it's hard to market to four different audiences, let's just say. So ideally, we have and we have picked one that we are working towards marketing more towards associations and nonprofits and these large. That's because it makes up the backbone of who we are. So we need to find and surgically refine our efforts around messaging, marketing, and building authority around that space so that we can go out and build more and more relationships with people. And we're lucky. We're here in Sacramento, so they're all located right here in Sacramento. So it's not like we've got to
Right.
travel the world to go find these, but it would be really fun to be able to maybe go to other states and talk to other groups too that do this same similar type of work because we've got a ton of experience working with these kind of customers. We know what their problems are. We know what their pain points are. That said, I would love to grow the company 10 to 15% per year until we get to, having more and more building up our staff, our younger staff, build them up into leadership positions so that then they can lead teams and build the legacy of page design so that it just continues on and on and on. And we're working very intently with that staff so that we know that when we start to build more and more capacity into page design,
Yeah.
they're equipped with the tools to lead and bring in more of those resources, more staff, more training, things like that. So we are putting forth efforts around that growth model. But again, it's all about building trust and authority. And that's probably the main focus of my job and my business partner, Mike's job as well.
Awesome. And I think that's probably a nice way to segue into rounding it up, because I think that's the underpinning thing of everything that you've said here today. And we've talked from everything from, automated LinkedIn reach outs to, having all your assets in one place. But I think that if I could take anything away, listening to you, and it's been fantastic, by the way, I've really learnt a lot from everything that you've said, and certainly given me food for thought. Um, Certainly, the way you describe branding, I'm going to stop going on. But what I'm trying to say, basically, I think what underpins, I think, the way you operate and your philosophy and approach to things is trust. And I think in this day of getting everything quickly and moving quickly and systemizing things and being hyper efficient, I think it's very easy to overlook, building trust, because you need that internally within your team. Like you said, you've got people working remotely, and you need that externally as well, like you said, in terms of building brand and shortening the time it takes to make the sale. And I think those are very, very fantastic points. And listen, like I say, for anyone who wants to hear more of Eric's insights, and you heard him, he says he's agreed to be back anytime, so he can't say no, and you've got the world as a witness here. But for anyone who wants to hear more of Eric's insight, please check out his podcast, Marketing Team of One, and Page Design's blog page at pagedesign.com/insights. And that's it for today's episode of Advantage Point. And join us next time, again, as I bring another guest, which, again, like with Eric, I'm sure you find highly interesting, and there'll be loads for you to glean from. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll catch you later.
Thank you.